Tony Blair has a long record of destroying countries in the Middle East, but for some bizarre reason, he's now being proposed as the right man to rebuild one. The BBC are reporting that Tony Blair is in discussions to run a transitional authority in Gaza. Apparently, the proposal has backing from the White House and would see Blair lead a governing authority supported by the UN and Gulf nations. Tony Blair's office has said he would not support any proposal that displaced the people of Gaza. I suppose that's a bare minimum, really, isn't it? Veteran Palestinian politician Mustafa Barghouti gave his response to the plans today.
Well, we don't have all the details of the American plan, but if it is true about appointing Mr. Tony Blair to be some sort of a governor of Gaza, that is absolutely unacceptable, and it makes no sense whatsoever, because Palestinians don't need another colonial power to rule them. Palestinians are quite capable of running their own affairs, and at the end of the day, once the war is over, we need to have new elections within a period of no more than 1 year, because Palestinians have the right to choose their leaders freely and democratically, something they didn't have the chance to do for the last 20 years.
Dropsite News had a few more details today. So they wrote, the White House is backing a plan to install Tony Blair as head of a new Gaza International Transitional Authority, or GITA, a trusteeship modelled on Kosovo and Timor-Leste. It would serve as Gaza's supreme authority for up to 5 years, initially based in Egypt and later entering the Strip with a UN-endorsed multinational Arab force. GITA would oversee a technocratic Palestinian executive authority, run ministries like health and education, create a vetted civil police, and set up a property rights unit to prevent forced displacement. Hamas is excluded. The Palestinian Authority would eventually be phased in, but with no firm timeline. Aaron, your thoughts on Tony Blair being installed as governor of Gaza?
Michael, you tell me. You're smarter than I am. When was the last time this worked?
What happened if it's supposed to be based on Kosovo and Timor-Leste, did they have international governorships for a while? I mean, I should be clear, I don't think this is going to work. I mean, we've already talked about how Tony Blair is fully backed by Oracle, Larry Ellison, a massive supporter of Israel and the IDF. I think the idea that Tony Blair has the interests of Palestinian people at heart is nonsense and ridiculous. When was the last time it worked? I've got no idea. Maybe never. What do you think? I'm throwing it back at you.
We had was it the Governor General in Iraq with Paul Wolfowitz? I mean, that guess what? Didn't work. The Brits themselves were involved in Palestine, the Mandate of Palestine. Complete disaster. It led to the State of Israel, the Nakba, hundreds of thousands of people being displaced from their land, just mass violence, 600 British service personnel, police officers being killed, King David hotel bombing, terrorism. That was the last time we had somebody saying, you know what, I'm just going to have a British administrator of Palestine. We're going to sort this all out. We're just going to parachute some dude in with an English accent with a nice suit, and he'll work it all out. It didn't work out last time. So again, it's just, I mean, does Tony Blair, this man is now in his 60s, his 70s. He was the prime minister of this country for 10 years. Does he read books? I mean, this is a question, right? I don't know the guy. We had somebody from the Tony Blair Institute on. Maybe they can answer that. Does the guy read books? I see lots of really interesting books, and there'll be a blurb, Tony Blair, quote unquote, masterful. So Tony Blair's read the book and he's now giving. I don't believe that, because he clearly doesn't read anything, right? Doesn't know anything. It's absolutely wild. And you're of course right to highlight the big conflict of interest. It's not just Larry Ellison. Tony Blair's political career is deeply imbricated with Zionism. The major fundraiser, I think it was Lord Levy, who was, basically the financial savior of the Labour Party. I think his nickname was sort of like Lord Cashpoint or something, because he was so good at raising money for Blair, Lord Levy. Again, a committed Zionist. And time after time, you see very high-ranking people in the Blair era of New Labour. They're big-time Zionists. They're not like, oh yeah, I think that, Israel was right in 1967 and the Nakba wasn't so bad. I mean, as in people who are financially, politically motivated by the cause of Zionism. So the idea that Tony Blair, somebody coming from that world with such extensive ties to Larry Ellison, a pattern of failure with regards to foreign policy in that part of the world, I don't get it. I mean, what is driving this other than narcissism and megalomania? Tony Blair, I'm sure he's intelligent enough to know that, his time will be up soon, right? Median life expectancy for a guy of his income, of his background, late 80s, 90s. He's probably thinking, I've got 25 years to really make my mark. I can be the guy who brings peace to Palestine. I mean, that's the megalomania we're dealing with. But I don't think that this is a plan in any way rooted in, historical experience or evidence or just basic rational thinking. It's liquid Blair. He wanted to be, I think, the first president of the European Union. I don't know if you remember this. After he left office, there was this, he wanted to be, a commissioner is slightly different because after the Lisbon Treaty and so on, there was talk of a president of the United States of Europe kind of thing. And I remember it being such a big deal. It was mooted by all the sort of liberal journalists in London at the time in the mid 2000s. It'll be Tony Blair. He's our answer to an American president. We need to find a political project which will fit this man's megalomania. It turns out even a think tank with a turnover of $150 million and 1,000 staff advising 40 governments, even that is not enough for this man. He needs to be the governor of the Mandate of Palestine 2.0. Guess what? It won't work.
But it presumably would be quite likely that they would just bring in the Tony Blair Institute to run every single department with Larry Ellison and Oracle. I'm not sure how seriously we should take this idea, although I suppose presumably it is being taken seriously in the White House and among some of those Gulf monarchies who are also, in many cases, quite close to Tony Blair.